Your Tuesday forecast calls for a slight chance of a shower in the afternoon, otherwise mostly sunny, highs in the upper 70s. By Tuesday night, mostly cloudy, lows in the upper 50s. On Wednesday, a chance of showers late in the afternoon, maybe an isolated storm, mostly cloudy and 78. By Wednesday night, chance of showers and storms, mostly cloudy and 61, or mostly sunny and 81 on Thursday. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Thomas in the morning. Thank you for letting us be of service to you here in the interwebs space, in the tubes that interconnect our homes as we gather together in our new, gussied up digs. Yes, this display behind me is what we like to call here at the Joe Thomas in the Morning program compensating for something. But we thought the imagery was a little bland, so to look a little less like one of those hostage videos that you see sometimes on the news, we decided to kind of put some trappings and stuff from the travails of my travels around here, just some tchotchkes. So when I'm droning on about some such constitutional this or freedom for that, or and the left says freedom for, and you start to daze, you can kind of look around and say, what has he got up there? But anyway, thank you for joining us on Rumble and on YouTube, and thank you for sharing it. We've had a ton of people. I don't know what Rumble's metrics are, but I imagine they were sitting there saying, who the hell is this guy? I don't remember Charlie Kirk getting this many followers in an hour. But, you guys are rocking there this morning, and of course the call-in numbers right there, 434-882-4217. The way it works is you call, you leave a message, and then we'll play the message back for everyone to hear. So either it's a comment or a question, and don't be shy if my answer doesn't suit, or you have a rejoinder, by all means. Send it on in to, again, you can call back. That's not a problem there. As well, you can also do emails to jtinthemorningradio@gmail.com. As I've said, just baffles me that there were 70 other people with the email address jtinthemorning. Well, I shouldn't be surprised, because I just filed my taxes yesterday, and one of the fun little things I get to do every year is await the love letter from the Internal Revenue Service giving me my little extra 5-digit code to put on my Social Security number, because somewhere some guy is working in I presume an avocado field or some such, with my Social Security number. I know this because one year I waited till April 15th to file my taxes, because I knew I was going to owe a certain amount of money, I thought anyway. So thinking that I was going to owe money, we waited until the 15th to file, and then I went to bed, and my wife comes running. She goes, wake up, wake up, wake up. They didn't take our iPhone. Oh. So, of course, your first presumption when the IRS rejects your tax filing is that you did something wrong in the addresses or whatever it may be. So I went back through and I did all the hootenannies and the re-vetted everything. And I said, sweetie, everything is in here. It's righteous. So we refiled it, and then I guess about 11 o'clock, midnight is the deadline bearing down on us. And luckily, I came to find out that night that we didn't owe any money. We actually were going to get a little smidge back. So she comes back up. She said, they rejected it again. They rejected it. I said, oh, my gosh. All right. So we went to the IRS office on April 16th. Can you imagine? Can you imagine walking in to an IRS office on April 16th? And there were 20, 30 people in line in front of me at 9 a.m. And the security guard knew who I was because of radio. And he said, hey, I said, why don't you go, and they go to lunch at 12. So come back at like 12:15 and you'll be first online. So I left and came back, collected my wife, and we were there at 12:15. And sure enough, just as the security guard said, as he winked at me when I came in, we were first online. So we sat down with a wonderful, and you'll never hear in my industry somebody saying a wonderful IRS inspector is like saying jumbo shrimp. And we had this wonderful fellow who sat down and went through everything, and started going through all the papers and clicking and bringing up files. And he said, "Oh, Mr. Thomas, the reason your tax return was declined was because you've already apparently filed your taxes." Now you have to give some credit to the ID thief. So whoever got my Social Security number as part of an identity fraud scam was a diligent enough person to still file his taxes. I mean, that hits you right here. I mean, if you're going to steal my ID, at least be a good citizen with it. So every year I get a PIN number from the IRS, and I don't know if this is a thumbnail sketch of society. So the software that I use is TaxSlayer. They don't give me anything. I pay them pretty decent amount of money to use it. But and this may be the last year, because starting our own company, we're going to have slightly more complicated tax returns. But using TaxSlayer, back when my Social Security number was stolen, I had to go digging through their software to find where I should put this PIN, and you couldn't do certain things. I mean, your functionality was minimal. I mean, you had to you couldn't populate last year's gross income or anything like that, because that was under last year's PIN number. So you had to. Now it's right there up front. He said, "Did you get a PIN from the IRS?" How many people have had their Social Security numbers stolen? I thought these were supposed to be the high watermark of security. This is like a thumbprint. You're not going to be able to steal that. Apparently, everybody's been having their Social Security numbers stolen. So, just on this April 16th, the anniversary of a gun-free zone, having what happens in gun-free zones happen, as horrific shootings that took place, the shooting spree at Virginia Tech. UVA fans like to call it Virginia Polytechnic Institute, but Virginia Tech, plenty of things going on today. Flags will be flying at half-staff in the Commonwealth as well, in honor of all those who lost their lives. And yes, you can't not blame the shooter. We are, if you're new to the program, the inanimate object has no blame in it. However, the inanimate laws that disallow people from being able to protect themselves and create, and this is really kind of the nuance of our position on gun-free zones, because gun-free zones, whether it's in Hampton Roads or Virginia Tech or any place they exist, create a false sense of security, a false sense that somebody else has it. As the wonderful author Douglas Adams said, it's hidden behind a somebody else's problem field. Your safety, your security, well, somebody's got that, right? Because they wouldn't set up a gun-free zone if somebody wasn't looking out for me. And unfortunately, the horrors continue to mount at these gun-free zones. And just like the Virginia Tech anniversary, is certainly the lives lost are a tragedy, and you can never pay homage to those who lost their lives that morning in Blacksburg thoroughly. But there were things that could have been done that would have at very least prevented it. And one of them is this idea that there's a gun-free zone so that there's some sense of security, that you don't have to do something. You've heard the phrase ever since September 11th, 2001. See something, say something. You've heard that, right? Again, 434-882-4217 or email jtinthemorningradio@gmail.com. See something, say something. No. Where I grew up, it was see something, do something. You see something going down, you see some spousal abuse happening, or you see somebody getting ready to cause a bar fight in your favorite pub, you do something. We used to, I guess I'm confessing here to some minor New York City misdemeanor, but my friends and I used to hang out in the evenings after sunset in a New York City park called Crocheron Park. Beautiful park right by Little Neck Bay, of course separated by a highway, but that's New York for you. Gazebos and just fields. It was nice, but it was certainly sufficient for us to pull up and just kind of hang out, listen to music on our car stereos, and have a couple of adult beverages. And there were homes nearby enough that there could be, if things got out of hand, police called. So we sort of became the militia for this park. Because if we knew everyone kept to themselves, kept the music at a reasonable level, nobody would call 911. Because if the police are called, they have to do something. So we figured, why get the police called? So whenever somebody would get bottle breaking or something, some such fights, we would actually go down and stick our stupid necks into it to de-escalate the fights. To the point where the police would pull down, see us, and just roll down their window and say, "Hey guys, how's everything going out there?" Pretty quiet. All right, what do you got there? Is that Alabama Slammers? Yeah, we decided to get fancy tonight. So, all right, well, just drive careful. And the police would leave. Because they knew that the park wasn't going to be full of brawls and shootings and things like that, because we were there to kind of see something, do something. And that's what you get convinced out of in my sociological analysis. Armchair sociologist, I will confess. I have no degree in the subject. Just 37 years of watching y'all has left me with some data points. And this armchair Monday morning sociologist says if you tell somebody that they don't have to be worried about security, they won't be. Take, for example, the Bataclan, that nightclub in Paris where the Islamist terrorists, like the ones who gummed up the Golden Gate Bridge yesterday, came in and started shooting up the place, and then somebody just bum rushed one of the shooters and took him down. Another one got hit with a chair. You don't have to have a firearm. The right to bear arms never mentions the word gun. Whether it's a chair or a baseball bat, a beer bottle, whatever it may be, if somebody is causing problems, you need to intercede and de-escalate it. And that's what we, unfortunately, as time wears on and we have more and more of these gun-free zones established, more and more places in our country, we're told, we got this. You got that. Don't worry yourself. Don't worry your pretty little head over it. Because as law enforcement friends of mine have said, time and time again, when seconds matter, police are minutes away. And that's police officers saying that. That's not a slight against the law enforcement profession. If you want a police officer hovering over you every minute, you better be careful where you're browsing too. You think that's a safe for work browser? I don't know about that. So there are prices to be paid. A friend of mine used to live in Tel Aviv, and she said, you guys have no idea how to secure a country. She said, there are armed soldiers, automatic weapons on pretty much every, if not every other street corner in Tel Aviv. And this was years and years ago. And she said, and they will stop you and say, where are you going? And if you don't go there, they will follow you and figure out why you lied to them. So there's all sorts of manners. I mean, you want a police state even one with, as our close ally Israel it is because it needs to be a security state. So those are the things you've got to pay attention to on this anniversary of not just my discovery that somebody had stolen my Social Security number, but on the horrific shootings that have all, unfortunately and tragically, become all too commonplace in gun-free zones where people are sure that it's not their need to worry about their security.
This is the Racing Wire Minute with Brian Belansky.
Wow, that's fast. That story next.
She can stand, she can do more. Like build a rocket and watch it soar. Clean the oceans and make the world a better place. Oh, she can stand.
Learn more at She Can STEM.
Teams in all levels of motorsports know time, or lack thereof, on pit lane is gold. Pit stops are timed, pit stops are practiced. And for Chase Elliott's Hendrick Motorsports team, all that work paid off. The team pulled off a 4-tire pit stop at Texas on Sunday in 8.49 seconds. That's the fastest pit stop in NASCAR history. For comparison, a 4-tire pit stop at the Indy 500, about 8 seconds. The fastest lap in F1, 1.8 seconds. Last year by McLaren, but that's just tires since they do no refueling in F1. In the 1960s, pit stops were 40 seconds, 33 seconds in the 70s, 21 seconds in the 80s, and now 8.49 seconds in 2024.
Your Tuesday forecast calls for a slight chance of a shower in the afternoon, otherwise mostly sunny, highs in the upper 70s. By Tuesday night, mostly cloudy, lows in the upper 50s. On Wednesday, a chance of showers late in the afternoon, maybe an isolated storm, mostly cloudy and 78. By Wednesday night, chance of showers and storms, mostly cloudy and 61, or mostly sunny and 81 on Thursday. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Joe Thomas in the morning. Thank you for letting us be of service to you here in the interweb space at YouTube and at Rumble this morning. Another story I want to get into, certainly not as critical as the gun-free zones, and certainly your discussion points on that at 434-882-4217. We'll your points on any of it. Certainly, I'm not blaming gun-free zone legislations on shootings, the people whose last good marble has come falling out of their hands. But I want to pivot on this because yesterday, in a story that I like to call Skill Bill and Skill Bill Volume 2, the lottery dealers of Virginia staged a protest and didn't sell any lottery tickets. I'm not sure if that's a violation of their contract with the Virginia Lottery Commission or not, but because of the governor's amendments to the Skill Bill law, that if you follow the story, Virginia was mad because there was money being spent on these skill games, there, poker, blackjack, whatever, at convenience stores and truck stops that wasn't going to the Virginia Lottery. And so they banned them, only to then, after they banned them, came back and said, well, you know what? We'll give you your skill games back, but this is such a classic gaslighting abusive spouse thing. And sure, I understand the governor's a Republican, but this is Democrats in the Virginia Senate and House that wrote the thing, passed the thing. The governor tweaked it and amended it. But it still, at the end of the day, comes down to the Virginia government saying, hang on a second here. You mean people go into these truck stops like Hermie Sadler's truck stop and spend money and we don't get any of it? That doesn't sound very Virginian, does it, Bob? So the Virginia lottery dealers staged a walkout. Do we have the story from, was this from News 12 that had this story?
They want lawmakers to reject Governor Youngkin's skill games amendments.
And many saying the changes will negatively impact their business.
Sarah Shackles caught up with a Richmond store owner about that protest.
No lottery today. Well, at least not at this Exxon convenience store on Richmond Highway. This shop and hundreds of others across the state refusing to sell Virginia lottery tickets on Monday to send a message to the governor.
Your lottery ain't on?
No, ma'am, not today.
What?
Just for today. I'm sorry for that.
Zahid Hussein has owned this gas station convenience store combo on Richmond Highway since 2016. But inflation and hiring costs have made things tough.
So skill game is going to be kind of extra revenue for us so we can keep the door open.
But Hussein says Governor Youngkin's amendments to the skill games bill effectively cuts him off from that extra revenue. The governor proposing a ban on skill games within 35 miles of a casino or a Rosie's, and a ban on those gaming machines within a half-mile of any school, church, or daycare.
Technically, we have the only one choice to fight back. Virginia Lottery, basically it's a state-owned. So we are boycotting that one first. We're going to boycott tomorrow from 3:50 to 4:50. We're going to shut down the stores.
The 2 days of action are designed to show what it would be like if their stores had to shut for good. How many people have you had to turn down so far?
So far around 15, 20 at least.
Hussein says it's nothing personal against the Virginia Lottery, and that he just wants to draw attention to the needs of his industry, which he feels have fallen on deaf ears in the governor's office.
It's not a bill only from the Democrats. It is not only from the Republicans. We have the support on that. 2/3 majority in the Senate and very big majority in the House. I mean, what else he need? What else he want to see?
In response to Monday's protest, Governor Glenn Youngkin's office sent us a statement saying the governor supports small business owners having access to skill games, but that the proposed changes give Virginians a voice. The protest continues Tuesday with hundreds of stores planning to close their doors for 1 hour. In Richmond, Sarah Shackles, 12.
That's from Channel 12 in Richmond. And so the protest is we're not going to sell your lottery tickets. Okay. But you listen to the governor's amendments, and it becomes clear. I mean, this is very much what they say. It's like legislation written by it's like a platypus. It's classically, you've heard the expression, platypus was a beaver designed by government committee. Well, that's what this really is it's a series of, we want to give you the right to have these skill games in your convenience store, just not near schools or daycare centers or casinos that we're also taking a cut from. And that's the big problem is that it's about protecting Virginia's money. It always has been. I mean, the ban on skill games in general was simply because Virginia wasn't getting its cut from the skill games and saw revenue from the skill games that could have been spent on Virginia lottery tickets not being spent on Virginia lottery tickets. And this is not partisan. But Joe, you say, doesn't the Virginia lottery fund education? Well, on the very first edition of this internet version of Joe Thomas in the Morning, we lost connectivity for a while, and I'm not sure whether this story was part of it or not, but there was a big piece about, oh, well, we've got lottery numbers, and oh, the lottery numbers were huge, and they were talking about their massive endowment of lottery numbers, and we decided to, because many of you come up to me and say, Joe, how come the county is asking for more money? Because I thought the lottery funded the schools. I thought the Virginia lottery was where the schools got their money from. And I said, well, that is certainly what they tell you, isn't it? But we did some arithmetic, as Ronald Reagan once told us to do. And so last year, this was the root of the story. It was like, oh, look at how much money we made from Powerball. Virginia took in $24 million from Powerball. Overall, the Virginia lottery last year took in $4.6 billion. Sounds like a lot of money. Dr. Evil, $1 billion really isn't all that much money anymore. Well, could you hook a brother up here and clue me in? So $4.6 billion into the Virginia lottery, and that's even with skill games. Oh, no. Last year there were no skill games because it was that weird year in between taking them away from Hermie Sadler and all the other truck stop operators. So if you do the arithmetic, there are 1,822 K-12 schools in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So if you divide the $4.6 billion up, that's $867 million. Hang on a second, I was reading my notes. No, I'm sorry, it's $13,172 each out of Powerball, $475,850 each out of the lottery in general. I'm sorry, just poor note taking. So as I was scribbling the arithmetic, so if you take the $4.6 billion up and divide it by the 1,822 K-12 public schools in the Commonwealth of Virginia, you get $13,000 out of the Powerball each. Overall, each school gets $475,850. Doesn't sound like so much anymore, does it? Well, so at the going rate, the average in Virginia, that's one student's tuition, because each school in Virginia, as an average, it's somewhere in between. Well, at the low end, I think some of the schools spend $9,000 per student. High end places like Albemarle County, it's pushing $16,000 per student. So Albemarle schools, and that is high school. But that's the Powerball money basically equals enough to pay for one student in the school. And then the $475,000, well, that's fun when you do some arithmetic on that. That's 36 kids, or the average classroom that I existed in elementary and high school. Of course, New York City was bankrupt at the time and being run by outside agencies. And we were in a hiring freeze, and nobody had any money. But that was 36 kids for each school. I think basically I've seen some numbers that say that's about 3 classrooms. Or 8.6 teachers if you take a salary of $55,000 per annum for a teacher. And I know the low end, the starting salaries are lower than $55K, but take $55,000 as an average for a teacher that's commuting from Waynesboro into Charlottesville to teach. That's 8 teachers. So when they run the ads, I mean, it's not that they're lying to you that says the lottery funds education. Well, maybe they are, because you've heard the expression before. There's lies, there's damn lies, and statistics. And these lottery numbers, when they say, well, $4.6 billion, and you say, well, that's more than I've got, Bob. Them there are statistics. And it's just about, and this is the thing. I found out Sebastian Maniscalco, one of our favorite comedians, my wife and I, is doing a sitcom for Cinemax called Bookie, because gambling has become so normalized that we can even have sitcoms about bookies now. Maybe Shohei Ohtani will do a celebrity visit to this sitcom. I don't know.
Your Tuesday forecast calls for a slight chance of a shower in the afternoon, otherwise mostly sunny, highs in the upper 70s. By Tuesday night, mostly cloudy, lows in the upper 50s. On Wednesday, a chance of showers late in the afternoon, maybe an isolated storm, mostly cloudy and 78. By Wednesday night, chance of showers and storms, mostly cloudy and 61. We're mostly sunny and 81 on Thursday. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Thomas in the morning. Thank you for letting us do what we do for you each morning here on YouTube and now Rumble. And what a great turnout yesterday on Rumble. Holy cow. I mean, there's a lot of folks on YouTube as well. I think there's a simplicity. Somebody asked me yesterday, Roy Bouge, as we like to call him from his emails. He goes, why is Rumble such a difficult thing for you to set up? Well, partially I think it is because Rumble is so difficult to get tossed off of. And I think it's the quid for the pro quo. So you have a certain amount of ability to yell ivermectin in a crowded emergency room and not get censured on Rumble. So they make it a little harder to get in there. Okay, fine. However it is. We figured it out. We've got enough followers. We've got the live stream going. And from what I can tell, the ability to do the live stream like we're doing it on both YouTube and Rumble is a relatively new thing to Rumble. Usually both parties had been kind of territorial about, no, you can't share. Can't share with us. What are you doing sharing with people, you bastard, you? But we're able to. So call-ins to 434-882-4217. Now leave your comment. You'll get a voicemail. We can't, right now, technology, we're getting new kit in here so that we can take live phone calls again. Now, that's always fun. But you'll leave a voicemail, and then we'll download the voicemail, and we will get your comments in there, and then I'll answer your questions. I don't have any issue answering your questions or anything else of that ilk in there. I posted a story. We had a great write-up at the end of last week by the folks, Patrick, at the Stanton News Leader, And we had a write-up today in the Augusta Free Press. Troy writes in, I had posted the story. Can we show the story to everyone? You're going to share the Facebook post. All right, so this is the Facebook post about it. Yes, that's the photograph. That's me and Brian Kilmeade on the Augusta Free Press story. So if you go to the Facebook page, Seville Joe Thomas or WTON Radio, and you'll be able to go read the story. But I don't think you can see the comment that Troy put in there. Graham is a great sports writer, but he has stage 5 TDS. TDS, of course, being Trump derangement syndrome, and that may be, and that's all fine and well and good. But he was a nice fellow. Really had a great chat with him. He started the conversation by saying, "Joe, are you sure you want to do this interview with me? I mean, you and I don't agree with a lot politically." I said, "Really? Let's play that out and see." And that's how I feel about everything. I mean, I don't agree with everyone on everything, nor should you agree with me on everything. There are people who are, nuanced on a million different degrees from Sunday. Most of us, I think, agree that at least if we're honest observers of the society, the harder the government tries to fix things for us, the worse it is. Thus my popularity with the Douglas Adams series, because look, I'm making the hitchhiker's sign anyway. Don't panic. But his point always is the bigger and more bureaucratic the government is, the worse it's going to be for you. It's not going to address your situations. It's not going to address your issues. Robert in Esmont writes in the Calvin Coolidge Project, new former Speaker McCarthy has cut a $5,000 check to John McGuire in Q1 of 2024. That's the Coolidge. The Coolidge Project is an interesting one, and we actually talked to John McGuire a little bit yesterday. He called, and we were talking. He's going to be on the program. Of course, Congressman Good. He's battling Congressman Good for the GOP nomination to run in Virginia's 5th congressional district. And Kevin McCarthy is all in on it. These are the battles. Marjorie Taylor Greene, 2 days from now, is going to be in Appomattox, I think. I have to go pull the flyer up, but she's going to be in the 5th district with John McGuire. And Marjorie Taylor Greene had been a firebrand, then I don't know, what Kevin McCarthy's agreement with her was back when he became Speaker, but she is all in Team McCarthy there, and that's okay. I mean, I've met Kevin McCarthy. Of all these congressional types, there are very few I can say that I've met. Now, Kevin McCarthy was here to campaign for a fella that we like to call here on the Joe Thomas in the Morning program, the Wriggler. And that reminds me of a story. So over the weekend with these Hezbollah drones, because Hezbollah apparently has all these drones and all these missiles to fire. I don't know where they got them from. They're not nearly as transparent as our campaign finance requirements are here in the United States. But Hezbollah is apparently the ones who were firing all those missiles at the Iron Dome. And while that was going on, a lot of people were like, "Oh, here it comes. This is it. This is." And the Wriggler, also known as former Virginia 5th District Congressman Denver Riggleman, took to Twitter and said, "Enjoying watching the X-bots talk about World War III. Relax, folks. This isn't World War III." And I thought about that as I read the Wriggler's tweet. And I said, if he's come out and said this is definitely not World War III, I feel like there might be a case to be made that this is the beginning of World War III then. And certainly a lot of folks nervously watch as the Houthi rebels continue to fire on allied NATO-owned ships as they go through the area as well, because at some point these international entanglements, as George Washington called them, are going to start to come into play there. But in any event, we were moving in further in. Let's stay on the subject of terrorism for a moment. This is from Newsmax, where I saw this story and I said, oh, here we go again. We've seen this one. We've seen this one right here on I-95 outside of Richmond. So the pro-terrorist demonstrators block Chicago Airport and the Golden Gate Bridge. And it's to get attention for the fact that if you want to be a terrorist, if you want to be a murderer, see, this is on the, at the risk of sounding insensitive. See, what the fellow who shot up Virginia Tech needed to do was first get declared an oppressed society. If he could have associated himself with an oppressed societal group, then perhaps everyone at Virginia Tech would say, well, I mean, it's understandable, because that is as salacious as it is. It's like, oh, Joe, too soon. That's exactly what's happening in the Middle East. Hamas, watching the last 10 years of American media, they get cable in those caves. They get cable down in those tunnels under Gaza City. And they've watched the virtue signaling left fall all over themselves to chase the wagging tail of whoever at that moment is considered to be an oppressed group. Charlottesville, our hometown, is one of the capital cities of that chasing the tail populism from behind a lectern, just trying to be seen as associated with the right group. And it is this tyranny of the 5%ers. So you get 5%. That's all you need to take over a city council meeting or a school board meeting or even a manner of Congress. You certainly don't need 50% or 60% of the population to block the Golden Gate Bridge. We saw that on I-95 in Richmond. You only need, 100, maybe not even that many. I think the I-95 blockage was like 25 people. Completely snarled everything in Eastern Virginia for hours. Why? Because they wanted to be seen as an oppressed group. And this, going all the way back, is why the government that governs the least governs the best. And you don't have to be a Madisonian or John Adams or anyone else to understand this. This has been borne out. We are on the 60th anniversary of the Great Society. And the Great Society is anathema to everything that George Mason and William Monroe and Thomas Jefferson stood for in the terms of national government. It was really everything that their European governments were doing, that Jefferson warned us about. And it is how you get these groups that are running around to feign oppression. So for the past 10 years, while we in Virginia and all the other points to the map, certainly the Pacific Northwest, have been demanding attention for our grievances, I have to recreate it. We lost the clip when I left the radio station, but we have a clip of Niles Frazier from the sitcom Frasier saying, "I'm not leaving till I get justice." Well, maybe not justice, more like preferential treatment, but I'm not leaving till I get it. I'm sure if you've listened to the radio program, you've heard me play it. I used to play it almost to distraction. So maybe it's good I don't have access to it for a little while, but we'll have it back. And that's what we see, these little groups that are doing. So Hamas, being funded in those tunnels, their cable TV bill paid by the Ayatollah of rock and roll in Tehran, says, hey, here's an idea. Why don't we just get ourselves declared oppressed, and then we can do whatever we want. We can start killing Jews like crazy. See, that was the Nazis' problem. The Nazis didn't understand. They should have gotten themselves declared an oppressed group, and then they could have killed all the Jews they wanted to.
Tuesday forecast calls for a slight chance of a shower in the afternoon, otherwise mostly sunny, highs in the upper 70s. By Tuesday night, mostly cloudy, lows in the upper 50s. On Wednesday, a chance of showers late in the afternoon, maybe an isolated storm, mostly cloudy and 78. By Wednesday night, chance of showers and storms, mostly cloudy and 61. We're mostly sunny and 81 on Thursday. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Joe Thomas in the morning. Thank you for joining us and letting us do what we do here on the interwebs space there and at 434-882-4217. I'm not sure what's going on here with the graphics, but let's get right to our next guest. He is the great Eddie Garcia, who is, we're having all sorts of issues here. Let's see if we can't get the cameras working again here on the program. We're all froze up here. Eddie Garcia is on with us. I know he can hear us there. How are you doing this morning, Eddie, while we work on the cameras?
Joe, I'm doing great. A little bit southy right now. I'm in Lynchburg, spent the night, but I'm on the campaign trail. Yesterday was day one of a 7-day road trip across the south side and the southwest and central VA. So the campaign is ramping up. It's going very well.
Well, I appreciate that, and of course, just this past week, it was the deadline to get all the signatures in to get onto the ballot, and you guys are one of the finalists. So there you have it. You are one of the finalists. You will appear on the ballot coming up in I guess starting on May 4th, correct, Eddie?
May 3rd. May 3rd is going to be the first day. We run to June 18th. That will be primary day. I tell people don't wait till June 18th. Show up May 3rd and spend 45 days getting people to the polls to vote for Eddie Garcia.
So talk about the process, because I know that it is a hard job to get all the people in place and everyone together to get these signatures and to get them on the ballot, to get you on the ballot. So talk about the effort it took to get that all taken care of.
Well, for someone to be on the U.S. Senate ballot here in Virginia, they have to collect 10,000 signatures of registered voters across Virginia and to verify who they are with their name, their address, and their signatures, and they check the voter rolls for it. In order to not have anybody thrown off and miss that mark, we went to 125% of that. So 12,500 is that mark. We turned in 12,700. I got to tell you, it's a monumental lift, Joe. We had some great volunteers across 11 congressional districts. We didn't pay anybody to do any of that signature gathering. We had volunteers, regular people, moms and dads at a ton of events, and I would show up at all the major events, gun shows, pro-life rallies, VCDL lobby day, the Trump rally in Richmond, you name it. We were there, and it's important. It was important for me personally, to get out there and meet the people across Virginia, meet the voters, shake their hand, tell them what I'm about, ask them to sign, not to vote for me, but just to help me get on the ballot. 12,700 is a lot. We were standing ready at the Board of Elections the first day it opened. We were one of two campaigns to do that. And now we're on the ballot. We're good to go. And so the time for choosing is right now here in Virginia. Who do you want to represent you to run against Tim Kaine? I believe I'm the best option for that. I believe we're going to have the coalition necessary in order to win a general election, standing on conservative values that can make the argument, that can articulate a conservative message to a group of people that we want to show up and vote. We need to win younger people. We need to win veterans. We need to win new Americans, people who have come here legally, have come here the right way, that want to achieve the American dream. We got to have a message for them. Obviously, we got to turn out our base. And so I just told you, I'm starting a 7-day road trip here in Southern Virginia. And that's important to turn out our farmers and our ranchers and the people in the agriculture industry, number one industry in Virginia. It's important. It's important that people show up and they speak up and their voice be heard. I'm asking them to channel that voice through a vote for Eddie Garcia.
And Eddie, we finally got you back in there, and I appreciate it. The issues, and we look at this and the international intrigue right now, certainly going on in the Middle East, and Senator Kaine has been so quiet on this, and he is obviously the target. I know that there are 3 or 4 others who made it to the next level, but really the issue is where Senator Kaine sits on things certainly as big as what's going on in between Hamas and the Israeli Defense Force, right?
Yeah, he should be quiet because I would tell you, ever since I was a kid, every time I messed up, I would be quiet. If my mother told me not to do something and I did it, and it turned out the way she thought it would, which was I broke something probably in the house, I would try to run away and be quiet. Senator Kaine has been on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee for 12 years, and over these 12 years, especially over these last 4 years, where have our foreign relations gone? We used to be pulling out of wars, and now the Democrat Party, through poor decision making in foreign policy, keeps getting us into more wars. They botched Afghanistan withdrawal. They've encouraged Ukraine and the Ukrainian people to quite frankly pick up a fight that they were never equipped or positioned or manned to ever win. And we've spent a lot of time, and a lot of people have died. And now look at our Middle East. Just when we thought we were getting out of it, it seems like we're getting new actors officially into it. At least during the previous administrations, Iran wasn't as bold as to come out and attack Israel. Now nation states are rising against Israel. He should be quiet because he's been part of this problem. When I get into the U.S. Senate and I replace him on that committee, we're going to start doing some digging and find out what's just been going on, because quite frankly, I just don't trust anything that he would say. I also wouldn't trust the chairman of that committee, Bob Menendez.
Wow, yeah.
And so with those 2 guys in charge of that committee in the United States Senate, there's no wonder why we see all this chaos around the globe.
So talk about the issue of Gold Bar Bob, or whatever they call him these days, but because we see this, and I was told this by Senator Mike Lee of Utah. He said everything right now that comes through the House and Senate comes through what they refer to as the firm. It is 4 people. It's Jeffries, Johnson, McConnell, and Schumer. And then it goes to the president. So whoever is pulling the president's string, that's 5 people governing this whole country. Eddie, talk about breaking that up, because a couple of them are Republicans.
Well, we need to break it up. This is a classic fight of the rich and the powerful, the connected in Washington, D.C., against the average working person in this nation. We have less and less representation. That's been part of my pitch, even in this primaries, that we have people that are connected in Washington. They're connected to these outside money-raising apparatuses. They're connected to Club for Growth. They're connected to the Koch brothers. They're connected to the DC swamp themselves. And then if you believe that somebody who comes from that system is going to actually fight it, I would question your judgment. We need an outsider candidate. We need an outsider leader to be able to take it to Washington when they get up there. I mean, I'm not chasing out-of-state donors. You'll hear other candidates across Virginia right now tout their endorsements of DC. They'll tout their money raised out of state. You won't hear me say that because I'm not doing those things. I'm not seeking those things. I believe we need a government that comes from us. And if we don't, Joe, we're going to have a government that comes at us. And so if we want a government that comes from us and not at us, I'd ask you to vote for Eddie Garcia, because when I get up there, I'm going to be fighting for the people who get me elected. And that's working people across Virginia. It's the farmers and the ranchers and the bricklayers and the construction workers and the window washers. It's all the people who do all the work around here. It's not going to be DEC, and it's darn sure not going to be these millionaires, billionaires. They don't even live in this Commonwealth. Sadly, that's just the way our politics has been run recently. But not when I get in there. They're gonna have something brand new on their hands. They're gonna have a 22-year Army Ranger with 6 combat deployments who's not scared of a little tussle, especially on TV.
Well, Eddie, and certainly the issue of endorsements, because this is going to be a very small one, like I said, May 3rd, and the Star Wars fans are grateful that May the 4th is not when the voting begins in our 45-day lunacy. But by June 18th, we're going to have a nominee to face up against Tim Kaine. And Tim Kaine has been through this battle before. He's got an enormous amount of money, but you're making it sound like money, especially when it comes from outside of Virginia, is not going to be the issue this year. Why do you think that?
Well, we're going to have massive turnout. We're going to have massive turnout. The presidential ticket at the top is going to have, President Trump is going to have massive people showing up for him. And then, obviously, this is Virginia. It's not Texas. It's not Mississippi. We'd be naive to not think that there's going to be a massive turnout to vote against him. And so the turnout's going to be there. The traditional model of how you get your message out and to get people to the polls, people are going to get to the polls. Once they get to the polls, they're going to make decisions. And it's my job between now and that period of time to make to influence and to give my message and to get those Virginia voters, when they get into the booth, that whoever they vote at the top of the ticket, that they vote for Eddie Garcia over Tim Kaine, because they're going to vote for the future over the past. They're going to vote for a problem solver versus a problem causer. They're going to vote for somebody who represents Virginia 2024, not Virginia 1994. And when I paint that picture, and I have to be laser focused, and I'm clear about this on the campaign trail, the more I talk about the presidential ticket, the less I'm talking about Tim Kaine. So we're honing in our target where it should be. Right now, it's this primary season, but right after that, it's Tim Kaine. He is the problem that we see across Virginia for the last 30 years. He's been a politician for 30 years. He's been raising money. He's not working for you, because if he were, we would be in a better position than we are right now. And so the money is important to get obviously to get a message to run a campaign staff in order to get those things out. But as far as turnout is concerned, I believe 2024 is going to be a record turnout.
Oh, I don't disagree. I think it's going to be enormous. But a lot of it is going to be driven on the economy. And I know there's a myriad of other issues that, as you go down the hierarchy of needs, but we're all coming home with 40% less from the grocery store because of the prices. The president and his administration is now pitching this idea of greedflation. They're trying to point to the store owners and the car manufacturers as the reason things, and the gas companies. Take a few moments before we have to go to talk about the inflationary issues that you can hopefully fix in the Senate. And is this greedflation something we should be paying attention to?
Well, let's not forget how we got into this inflation. We got into this inflation by shutting down the government and ruining the supply chains, because we've been manufactured, or we've moved manufacturing and production offshored and outsourced for 30 years, because politicians line their pockets with corporate dollars in order for them to pass bills to make it easier for them to do that. That's how we got inflation. That's how we got into this space. We also got increased gas supplies because the Biden administration decided to sanction Russia during this whole Ukraine ordeal, which has driven up the cost of energy in our countries, but not the rest of the world, because they're still selling oil and gas to the rest of the world. So we are uniquely at the brunt of this. That directly falls on the Biden administration and Tim Kaine. And to combat that, we need to grow jobs and opportunity here. We need to move manufacturing back here. We need the future production, the future workforce of America needs to be in America. It needs to be in Southside Virginia. It needs to be in Southwest Virginia. It needs to be in the Southeast of the United States, where we have cheap land, where we have access to resources, where we have an American population that speaks the language, that wants to work, and that wants to achieve the American dream. We got to have a message for those people. We got to have policies in order to do that. That's how we grow jobs and opportunity. I talk about a national nuclear energy plan that expands all 48 lower states. We're positioned in Virginia to do that with modular reactors and eventually larger ones. But we got to have people in D.C. that actually want to put people to work and to focus on these big problems. Right now, they're dividing us amongst race and gender and religion and all the culture stuff. We got to get through that and start focusing on what my mom used to say: let the main thing be the main thing. We got to start focusing on the main thing, which is building our nation again. And it starts from the bottom up. It doesn't start from with DC down, and it also starts in these elections. And what I would tell you is to support this outsider candidate who's the son of a ranch hand who comes from a place in a small town that most people have never heard of. But I'm running for the U.S. Senate, and when we win, you're going to have somebody that you can be proud to support.
Well, Eddie Garcia is on with us, and you've been in this longer than I think anyone. Getting the message out there, and one of the few that made the signature threshold to get on to the ballot. You mentioned job skills training, and I want to hang on to you for a moment. I know I said let you go at 7. I hope you don't have to get anywhere else. But we've heard about this here in the Valley, where we're about to launch our new radio station. We've got Northrop Grumman moving in. We've got the Great Hershey Company moving in. We've got Amazon moving into Louisa County. And I've had too many people. I mean, it actually becomes irksome to me how many people have said, well, the people who are going to work there, they're going to have to move in to this area. I'm like, why? Why can't the people who are already from here take these jobs rather than counting on come-heres? So talk about what a U.S. senator can do to help, foment job skills training that probably should have been happening a lot earlier, but at least as we're trying to play catch up in a place like Central Virginia, Eddie.
Well, I talked to tradesmen just yesterday. I was touring an HVAC factory in Richmond, talking about the lack of skilled positions, of skilled workers, people with. I've also been to the Carpenters Association not too long ago. It's the same problem. Everybody who's in the trades, whether it's plumbing or electricians, carpentry, the roofers, they're hurting for people. We need to have a jobs plan back, an education plan for skilled labor in this nation. I mean, more and more men, what you're seeing is more and more young men not wanting to go to college. We have to have this a program or a public-private partnership in education to produce the skilled labor that we need in this country. We don't need outside people. Washington, holistically, and then even what it sounds like here within the state is like we have a problem. For some reason, there's a problem with Americans doing American jobs. Mm-hmm. If they can't outsource them to some other country, then when they try to bring in cheap labor through the southern border or elsewhere to take the jobs that Americans would have by having it in this country. We have to start prioritizing our citizens. And Americans right now are being priced out of their homes when they're over the age of 70. We have veterans that are homeless on the streets. We have more and more people that are in desperation due to all these higher costs and stuff that we talk about. We have to put Americans back to work. And to do that, one step removed from that is to be educated for that future workforce. Mm-hmm. If the future workforce means semiconductors, it means robotics, it means cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, machine learning. It means these things, and it means the trades that we all know: plumbing, electrical, HVAC, etc. All these big businesses, Amazon, data centers, they need all that stuff. We have to have an education system to funnel people from high school or even within high school to start those skills early, move them into the trade so they can be a skilled craftsman in whatever field they're working in, and we line them up with a job, we line them up with industry. The public and the private can work together if we choose to, but instead we're arguing over pronouns at the federal level, and it's silly. It's time to get serious people in office that want to solve some of these serious problems.
Joe Thomas in the morning here on Rumble and on YouTube with Eddie Garcia, one of the candidates to hopefully get to face off against Tim Kaine. You mentioned outsider, Eddie, and there are different kinds of outsiders, and I've come to nuance this because there are people who are not necessarily having ever been office holders, have been passed through the party vetting. I don't even know if vetting is the right word, but they've been involved in the party politics for a while. Is that an important differentiation between real outsider who's not held a public office before and somebody who has kind of been through the partisan system over the last few years?
Yeah, there's a lot of people who pass through that. I would call it an apparatus more, but
good word.
Yeah,
that's why we're voting for you for Senate, because you have better words than me.
No, hopefully that's not the only reason. No, so I finished my Army career, a 22-year Army career with 6 combat deployments. I finished it working out of the Pentagon with the House of Representatives and with the U.S. Senate for 5 years. I got a master's degree in legislative affairs. That was part of my service. That was part of my uniform. It was a job that I was tasked to do. I had a chance to work with Congress, not in Congress. And I make that distinction because being an outsider in that capacity as somebody who's not a part of the political system but the executive branch, I got a chance to see exactly what Congress's priorities are and what they are. What they aren't is they aren't you and I. They aren't regular people. I'm the son of a ranch hand. My dad never made over $55,000, Joe. He still doesn't. He still works outside 6 days a week. If we got to have a party that reflects the people we want to vote for. And right now we got a federal government that does a whole lot for people who already have a whole lot. And it does very little for people who have very little. And we're seeing seniors priced out of their homes and destitute. We're seeing veterans coming back with PTSD and anxiety without the health care that they need and deserve, quite frankly. We have infrastructure that's collapsing. We have a public school system that's run amok, and we see it in the school boards, and we see it with these outrageous claims like Senator Kaine this week talking about parents that attend these school board meetings. We're fracturing at the seams. And DC is only worried about becoming richer and more powerful. It's our money, it's our taxpayer dollars that float those 7 counties in and around DC, and they all get paid. They all get paid. I'm not a part of that system. I haven't been a part of that system. Other candidates have. I believe that if you want somebody to go against that system, you're going to need an outsider, not of somebody who's already been in there and gotten rich off of it. If you've gotten rich off the system by hanging around DC for 30 years since Reagan, chances are you're not going to fight to do anything against that system because that's how your bread was buttered. The same if you work for Club for Growth or one of these big major PACs or one of these organizations, one of these think tanks that you've cut your credentials on. Chances are you're not going to go against them, and they're run by people who just quite frankly are not interested in what the average person prioritizes, what they need in order to run their lives. We don't need the government to do everything, but we do need the government to do some things. And those things we needed to do it well. We needed to secure our border. We needed to strengthen our military. We needed to save Social Security and help our seniors. We can do those things if you have somebody that's talking about them and getting people excited about voting for them.
Eddie Garcia, thank you so much for taking some of your time this morning. I know you're down knocking on doors, shaking hands, having rubber chicken breakfasts in Lynchburg, but we appreciate it. Congratulations on making the cut. You'll be on the ballot through June 18th. All your local parties need volunteers. You need poll watchers and folks making sure that that the ballots are counted, and that come June 18th, we know who the opponent for Tim Kaine is. Eddie, God bless you, sir, and you have a great morning.
Thank you, Joe, and congratulations on your new venture.
Oh, well, I appreciate it, and we'll have you back on plenty of times before June 18th.
All righty.
Your Tuesday forecast calls for a slight chance of a shower in the afternoon, otherwise mostly sunny, highs in the upper 70s. By Tuesday night, mostly cloudy, lows in the upper 50s. On Wednesday, a chance of showers late in the afternoon, maybe an isolated storm, mostly cloudy and 78. By Wednesday night, chance of showers and storms, mostly cloudy and 61. We're mostly sunny and 81 on Thursday. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Joe Thomas in the morning. Thank you for joining in with us and letting us do all this stuff. We're also going to visit with one of the other folks who made the cut on the ballot for U.S. Senate. Jonathan Emord, author of The Authoritarians, is going to be coming up as well. I want to spend a couple of minutes on some of the other things going on. The Virginia NAACP is suing Governor Youngkin over freedom of information violations because, as they claim, It is an issue where the governor has avoided scrutiny regarding the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Office at the governor's, at the executive branch, and that they haven't done enough. And all this roots back to when the DEI chief, who was under Youngkin, a VMI grad, was at VMI, saying that he didn't believe the DEI office should even exist. And I think that's something that you and I probably agree on. You can make a phone call to this number here, 434-882-4217, and leave a message, and we'll play your comments back. If you have a question on that, that's fine as well. Or you can email to jtinthemorningradio@gmail.com. So what they're trying to find are any details, and I'm involved in FOIA frequently, and FOIA is an interesting thing, especially when liberals try to fight back against FOIA, because they in many cases wrote the FOIA laws in reaction to Watergate. Most of our FOIA legislation will go all the way back to Watergate and the aftermath of the break-in at the DNC headquarters. But it's interesting when you listen to left-wingers try to say, well, you don't have any right to that information. They're trying to track down, and they say the governor's office has not been thorough enough in its releases of documents regarding the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, and it's like, so according to the NAACP of Virginia, now these are the same folks that helped write our current iteration of the Virginia Constitution, but their lawsuit says the administration has failed to produce records responsive to the group's request for public information. They want to be able to get documents related to the creation of the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the Commonwealth. Now, here's the problem with some of this. NAACP is asking the Youngkin administration for details on the creation of an office that goes back to Governor Northam. But they've also asked for other related matters. Now, the FOIA filing is not in the court records, which are public right now. But they did issue this statement. Reverend Cozy Bailey, president of the Virginia NAACP, said in a statement, quote, "The purpose of today's action, like all the actions we have taken, is to seek full transparency and to hold the Youngkin administration accountable. Virginians, especially people of color, deserve to know that this administration is doing what this administration is doing in its Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Some believe this governor is copying efforts seen in other states to limit or outright eliminate DEI practices in state government. If this is the direction he is going in, the Virginia NAACP will not stand by and allow this to happen. We will look forward to our day in court." So, of course, it doesn't matter, and as you can tell from the statement, it actually doesn't really matter whether the governor is trying to get rid of the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. The NAACP thinks he is because, well, he's got that scarlet letter R, doesn't he? Mac's going to take us and open his notebook for us coming up in a moment, and we'll get to you as well. 434-882-4217 on Joe Thomas in the Morning.
Your Tuesday forecast calls for a slight chance of a shower in the afternoon, otherwise mostly sunny, highs in the upper 70s. By Tuesday night, mostly cloudy, lows in the upper 50s. On Wednesday, a chance of showers late in the afternoon, maybe an isolated storm, mostly cloudy and 78. By Wednesday night, chance of showers and storms, mostly cloudy and 61. We're mostly sunny and 81 on Thursday. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Joe Thomas in the morning here on Rumble and on YouTube, and thank you for joining us and letting us do what we do. And you can see behind the scenes in our new kind of gussied up set. Yeah, say what you will. Yeah, we did this for Rumble. Why not? Why? It's actually one of those things that I've been wanting to do for some time, ever since we built this little TV setup in the studio enclave. Most of this stuff was in my office at the old radio station, so it really was my bout of unemployment. Left all this stuff in my hands here. Joining us now to take us into his notebook and what's going on in the world of sports is the great one himself, Mac McDonald. Good morning, Mac. What's going on, sir?
Good morning, JoJo. I had to finish class last night at 8 o'clock, and I was behind. I recorded the first part of I never thought I would be taking notes on the WNBA draft. But there were a lot of storylines, not only the Caitlin Clark story, which I'll get to in just a second, but former Virginia Tech center Elizabeth Kitley has been drafted by the Las Vegas Aces. She was picked 24th, the last pick in the second round. Normally, she was headed towards the first round selection, but the knee injury against Virginia in her final regular season game. She was a 5-year starter for the Hokies. She tore her ACL in March, as I said. 6'6", 23 points a game, which was 5th in D1, 11 rebounds per game. She was an integral part of Kenny Brooks' squad over her career, especially during the Hokies' run of the Final Four in 2023. A starter for all 151 games.
Nice.
During that time, she amassed 2,700 points and was just a mainstay. So last night, her name was called, her parents were there, and all she was looking for was a hug.
With the 24th pick in the 2024 WNBA draft, the Las Vegas Aces select Elizabeth Kitley from Virginia Tech.
If I decide to take a positive look at it, I get a year to sit behind and watch the best in the league, especially in my position with Asia Wilson. That's just incredible. So, I try not to worry about the things I can't control and just focus on the positives. Oh my gosh, I couldn't pay them to miss it. They come to everything. They've never missed anything. I wish I got a hug, but we'll do it later, I guess.
Family was there. Before her injury, she was widely considered to be locked in as a first-round pick, as I said, giving her a successful career at Virginia Tech, but that was put into doubt. But she was able to hear her name, and so an exciting part. But anyway, no surprise, Caitlin Clark went number 1 in the WNBA draft last night. The Indiana Fever gets a solid point guard to team up with Aaliyah Boston. And while people talk about her three-point distance, her court vision, and making people better are two variables that make Clark so valuable. So at the press conference last night, she looked dapper, by the way. Silk suit, little silk mini skirt, little silver thing going on. I don't know women's fashion, but Caitlin looked dynamite last night, okay? And plus, she just is she's so solid in her mindset. She's so solid what she's going to do for the league, herself, her family, her teammates. You get somebody with great court vision, but you get somebody with just fabulous maturity, okay? She told the scribes last night she has one goal, and that's to make the Fever better. Other than that, get ready for new Nike, new Gatorade, new State Farm commercials, and God knows what else. And as she said, with all that being taken care of, she just wants to make the Fever better.
Sponsorships stay the same. The people around me, agents and whatnot, have been able to help me and guide me through the course of the last year. And I don't know if I would be in this moment if it wasn't for a lot of them. And my mom has done a lot. My dad has done a lot. My 110% focus is on basketball. And, when I do that really well and carry myself really well, everything kind of just takes care of itself.
Joe, a couple of notes on all this with the Caitlin Clark Fever, which is, where she's going to play. Her nil take name, image, and likeness was 3.1 million. Some people say 3.4. What's a couple 100,000? But as you just heard the sound bites, you're going to let her team take care of everything. Already 2 million viewers on Instagram, and her cereal at Hy-Vee in the Iowa region, Des Moines, and Caitlin's Crunch Time cereal.
Oh my!
And it'll be at some point where they're going to capitalize on her favorite phrase. Come on now, and she says it like nobody else. So consider this: 36 Fever games. Okay, that's 36 out of 40 regular season. 90% of the schedule will be on national television or streaming. One more than back-to-back champion, the Las Vegas Aces. Cost for Fever tickets up 190%. The Vegas Aces have already moved the July 2nd game with the Fever to T-Mobile Arena. 6,000 more seats.
Of course.
That's why. And Caitlin Clark to lead the you get prop bets. Okay, there are prop bets already out for Caitlin Clark to lead the Indiana Fever in scoring, to average 22 plus, to record 133s. These are all prop bets that you can make this morning if you want to get caught up with Caitlin Clark Fever. So there.
Then that bears the question: what is Shohei Ohtani's action in this?
No. Well, let's put it this way. Caitlin Clark is so good with press conferences. She does not need an interpreter.
No, she does not.
But she's starting now. I listened to her today. She's probably just getting tired of the interviews. She's starting to slip into the youth vocal fry market. You know, where she's starting to go, well, all of a sudden I'll let my team take care of that. And but I gotta call her, her team, and go, look, she needs vocal lessons, but she's so smooth, so mature, handling things.
So that's her catchphrase is "Come on now."
Come on now. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh,
constant press conferences. Oh yeah. Somebody will jump on it.
If every major tourism board isn't like scraping together every dollar they can come up with, New York City's tourism board is just like Disney.
Come
on now.
Yeah. See the Brickyard to Indiana.
Right.
Come on now.
I'm seeing
Where's your vacation? Come on now.
Right.
Yeah.
Put on these sneakers. Come on now. Just do it. It's her version of just do it.
You're not going to wear Nike? Come on now. Yeah. It's
the commercials write themselves.
Yeah, and probably there'll be a little logo probably to come. With "Come on now" and whatever. But she has been brilliant in the way she's handled everything, and the people around her, the mom and dad, keep her grounded.
So I'm curious about this. My mom played women's basketball back in the era when there were 3 people on one side of the court and 3 people on the other.
My mom played when it was thirds.
Right, and you didn't go into the other one and whatever. You were a defender, or whatever.
Right.
But I enjoy, and I enjoy the high school game. I enjoy the women's game. A lot more than I've taken to the men's game. And I was just talking to Dave Johnson yesterday from the Washington Wizards, who, of course, you want to make it tough to enjoy the men's game. But that was a rough year. And he even sent out an email saying, hey, thanks for everyone who went through this kind of tough year.
Rough. Yeah. They were so bad they had a free throw blocked. I mean, they were anyway, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Pete Gillen is on the phone saying, stop stealing my lines. So, former UVA basketball coach and Catskills comic, Pete Gillen. But is the court grown? And I say this, I'm not one of these make the rim higher, because I don't think 10 feet is too high. I think it's perfect, the height of the rim. But I would be in favor, and the reason they'll never do it is because you'll lose high dollar seats. Where's Spike Lee going to sit if you did this? But for the men's game, the court needs to at least be wider. I mean, if you get 2 good 7-footers now, you've ostensibly blocked. I mean, never mind Tony Bennett's back line. 2 good 7-footers like Duncan and Robinson were. You've blocked the entire back line, And so the matter of trying to get people out of position, I mean, that is fun watching the men's game where they're trying to pass around, and that is good, but it is clogged up. There are way too many really big people. I mean, when the little guards are 6'7", I think the men's court needs to get wider by at least make it wider by a foot on each side.
Yeah, you've fallen in that camp of what happened just last week in the Masters, the debate of the rolled back golf ball and 8,000 yards. You know, and there's no change. You know, the football field's going to stay 100. And but I see what you're saying regarding the, you know, the wider lane would make a difference too. There for a lot of years, even back when Terry Holland was coaching in the 80s, a lot of the college coaches were talking about, let's go to the international rules and make it a worldwide game, and widening the lane was a big part of that. You know, and getting back to my career in 1975 when I got my first radio job, and then we would go that spring, my first spring, 76. I did my first women's tournament in Des Moines, 5 nights, I think, all sold out, the Sweet 16, all classes, a school with 100 girls or 10,000 girls could play the same night, and it was sold out year after year, 6-on-6. And Iowa was one of the last states to get off the 6-on-6. And they finally went to 5-on-5, but the Iowa Girls Union kept the 6-on-6 game for a long time. 2 dribbles, the ball goes in, the official grabs it, a long bounce pass half court, the next official catches it, puts it into play in the center circle, 2 dribbles, screens, plays. I mean, and the leading forward would average 87, 88 points a game. True. And those games were in the 90s. They were so fast and so good. And yeah, but my mom played, she was what she called herself a running center. And my mom was like 5'3". So that was the game in Tennessee with, you know, 2-2 and 2. They played 6-on-6.
Well, you look at the motion, and one of the most beautiful things about a basketball game, and I find the same thing in lacrosse as well. Especially, I did some promotion for the major indoor lacrosse league for a while. The box lacrosse, the indoor stuff. When you watch the pass, and this goes back to the Red Holtzman era, the Clyde Frazier, but the pass that leads to the pass, that leads to the outlet, that leads to the open jump shot or the dunk. I mean, that's beauty. But you know, this ISO basketball with Allen Iverson just standing at the point, dribbling for 22 seconds and then breaks either right or left. With
everybody standing around.
Yeah, and just watching it.
In the pro game, you see it some, but you don't see it a lot. I was watching the other day, and it's just insane. And not to interrupt you, Joan, I'm sorry, but yeah, even during the Final Four women's tournament, I thought, like Caitlin and some other of the players, Angel Reese of LSU, I thought they were just, sort of burnt out, because they were getting in that, where there wasn't much movement. There was just a lot of standing around. Hey, wait for my teammate to do something. And, but you were right. The movement of the game, I mean, it was designed. Basketball, when Naismith, was throwing it in the peach basket, he wanted people to move. Henry, Coach Iba, he wanted people to move. That was the design of the game. And then, of course, when Pat Riley put in the triangle offense and wanted all that to, but that's the design. You want people to move and be a part. Yeah. So the pass to the pass, exactly. You're exactly right.
Well, there we go. We've saved the world, Mac, yet again.
We have. We've saved the basketball world. So I'm gonna write it down. I got a buddy coming from Iowa to visit me. I'm gonna see if he can pick me up a box of Caitlin Crunch Time.
Come on now.
I think. Come on now. You got to. So I'm gonna make that phone call today.
All right. Well, you have a great morning, sir. And have
all
a great
right,
morning.
Partner. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Oh, by the way, women's softball tonight. They play Virginia Tech. I wanted to plug that in. And the men play Old Dominion at Old Dominion in Norfolk.
Your Tuesday forecast calls for a slight chance of a shower in the afternoon, otherwise mostly sunny, highs in the upper 70s. By Tuesday night, mostly cloudy, lows in the upper 50s. On Wednesday, a chance of showers late in the afternoon, maybe an isolated storm, mostly cloudy and 78. By Wednesday night, chance of showers and storms, mostly cloudy and 61. We're mostly sunny and 81 on Thursday. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Thomas in the morning. Thank you for tuning in, whether you're watching on Rumble or YouTube, and please, by all means, share this. If you come to it later in the day, the upside of both of these platforms is they save it. You can watch it later. You can share it with your friends. You can write comments. Thanks to Jim. I think it's Jim. I'm going to call you Jim. Damn it, Jim. I don't know your initials, but I know somebody with those initials. But if you are the same Jim, he says absolutely promote trade schools. And this is where we are. We're playing catch up in a lot of ways, and there are policies. This goes back to something we were talking about with Eddie Garcia. But it's this idea that these jobs that are coming into Stanton, Waynesboro area, or Louisa, or heaven forbid, Charlottesville, would somehow be for other people and encouraging another wave of come-heres and not really benefiting the from-heres. And this is often what these economic development plans wind up becoming, and it's why taxes always wind up going up to pay for them. You'll have tax increment financing, TIF, to promote some Main Street revitalization all around some big package that helps some light manufacturing, some data center company or whatever move in, and then they bring all the employees in, and all the taxpayers are like, hey, hang on a second here, what happened? And then if they're renters, the price of the rent of their home go up, and they really kind of feel like they got the high hard one. And so you have to be careful with these things because, yes, there's a case to be made for greater economic activity, and we see it when the governor cut taxes and collections at the state level went up. There is that, but the devil is in the details, and I'm sorry if that's a hackneyed expression that you hear time in and time out, but it's the truth. Just saying we need economic development is not enough of the answer. It's a great bumper sticker. We used to say that our government has an ED problem, and unfortunately there's no little blue pill to help our government fix their ED problem. And a lot of times it is legacy businesses. I used to broadcast to Buffalo, New York, and there were families who could count their wealth all the way back to the shipping industries of the Great Lakes and the Erie Canal, which was, truth to be told, the reason the city of Buffalo was there. It was the Erie Canal would come out into Lake Erie, and then the city of Buffalo grew around the economic activity that took place as the barges of the Erie Canal would come and offload and have to be put on the big, the Ella Fitzgeralds and all the other freighters of the Great Lakes to go to Detroit or Cleveland and all the other places they would head off to. And they would come through New York, so they would come up into New York and then go and then cut across in the Erie Canal, and that's how the city of Buffalo would get there. But it had long since died. That whole industry had long since left the building, yet there were still families who would campaign and pay for candidates to run against the idea of economic development because they didn't want to lose their grip on power. If some other company came in, it was a famous economic development story. So I guess part of the problem was the company involved didn't ask for state money, but there was a truck manufacturing company in Buffalo called Diamond Rio. famous, great, big, powerful truck, delivery trucks and things like that, still to this day. And the factory still exists in the city of Buffalo. It's enormous. It's just this, it truly is this brick beep house. I know, it's the internet, you can say it, but I don't want to lose my ability to censor myself. But it is, I mean, the floors are 6 feet thick. And it's empty. It's been empty since the Diamond Rio company left Buffalo. And a company came in and said, well, you know, there's a fiber optic trunk line that runs right along here in the Erie Canal, and we would really like to have our data center here to work off this trunk line, this high-speed fiber optic trunk line that runs just along Lake Erie on up into Canada from points to the south. And we would like this Diamond Rio building because these floors are so massive, all of our servers, and we're going to fill the place with technology and high-tech people and high-tech jobs. And they were going to, this company, I'll tell you who it was in a moment, but this company was going to endow large sums of money to the community colleges of the area to teach those skills that, you know, people get in there and they say, click, 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 you know, flying mice all over the place. And the city needed to approve on this because ever since Diamond Rio had left, they were protecting this historic landmark. It was an empty factory, but they were protecting this historic landmark. And so they had to approve of its transfer to this technology company in order to be used as a server farm. And the city of Buffalo, with somewhere in the area of about 15% unemployment, 35 to 40% underemployment, people making like two $15 an hour jobs, two $10 an hour jobs just to make ends meet, said no. They said no because the company, even though they promised, they had all the graphics, they had CAD designs, and they said, we're going to restore the building. It'll look exactly the same, except it's going to have our logo on the front. And that was a problem. It was a problem for the city of Buffalo because even though it would say the Diamond Rio headquarters of, it would still acknowledge another company was there now. And this hysteria over Historia drove away a company. Perhaps you've heard of them. This is 2000. So it was kind of pre-Amazon. So this isn't quite as egregious as Alexandra Occasional Cortex saying that Amazon and its tech center in Queens, New York was not the right kind of jobs. I mean, it's kind of akin to slavery. Wasn't quite as bad as her statements on Amazon in Queens, in her district. But the city of Buffalo said no to this little tech company you may have heard of, Microsoft. Microsoft was going to pay for it all because they could. They weren't asking the city for any money. They only wanted the city. They were even going to build parks around this in some of the associated lots that were also former factories that fed the Diamond Rio facility or did other things in this manufacturing area. They were going to build parks. They were, as I said, they were going to endow the schools to help train kids. And the city of Buffalo, because it was more important to remain an empty factory, historic empty factory, but empty factory nonetheless. That was more important to them than actually welcoming in some new industry that might employ new people that aren't beholden to the old monies. So economic development is not a one-size-fits-all kind of gig. A steel city, Coatesville, Pennsylvania, wanted to take a guy's farm so that they could build a golf course on it because they were told by consultants that if you had a golf course or a river walk, that would draw convention business and you could get hotels and a conference center and that kind of thing. And they had the place to build the conference center, but they didn't have enough room to build the 18-hole golf course because they also didn't have a riverfront that they could build an esplanade. So they were just going to take this guy's farm under eminent domain to build a golf course. And this is pre-Kelo. Look up Dick Saha. You'll find the name Joe Thomas involved in there too. So we've seen this before. We've ridden this rodeo of job creation and whose job it is. So when you say, well, why is it the government's job to pay these? Because we're playing catch up in some cases. But there's a bigger societal issue that has to be addressed, which is making it worth doing. And ever since the Great Society, 60 years now, celebrate the anniversary of the Great Society, where Lyndon Johnson said he was going to create a society that would deliver abundance, his words, abundance and liberty for us all. Yet now, here 60 years later, we have 4 times as many people living under the poverty level as we did when the Great Society began 60 years ago. The war on poverty is going worse than our war against terrorism. But you know, the polite people don't say that. You say, but Joe, they're poor, they just need help. Yes, but what is help? Help is a word. What is your definition of help? Classically, we talk about the hand up versus the hand out. Teach a man to fish, and so on and so forth. So how are you engendering that? What are you doing to that? And part of it has to be societal, because was it 2010? So we're coming up on 15 years since Common Core became a thing. And this is very unpopular amongst some of my friends. Common Core, the Common Core educational destruction, was the brainchild of the Republican Governors Association, led by Bob McDonnell of Virginia. And it was a response to an all too real research project that said black kids in the inner city didn't see the point in scholastic achievement. So the Republican governors of America said, well, what can the government do to help change that? You and I know the answer is not a lot. There are things the government can stop doing that would change that, but that's another discussion. So these Republican governors came up with the Common Core curriculum, which said, if the kids get higher grades, they'll be more enthusiastic for learning. So let's lower the standards so they can score more. That's what it all came down to. It wasn't so much, did you do the equation? It's, did you show us that you understood what the equation was? That an equation was somewhere in it. Even if you just said, I think there's supposed to be an equation here, I don't know how to do it. And it was all because somebody said, we're from the government, we have to help.
Your Tuesday forecast calls for a slight chance of a shower in the afternoon, otherwise mostly sunny, highs in the upper 70s. By Tuesday night, mostly cloudy, lows in the upper 50s. On Wednesday, a chance of showers late in the afternoon, maybe an isolated storm, mostly cloudy and 78. By Wednesday night, chance of showers and storms, mostly cloudy and 61. We're mostly sunny and 81 on Thursday. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Joe Thomas in the morning. Thank you for tuning in to us here on Rumble and on YouTube as well, where you can find us. Joining us from the Senate campaign, another of the folks who made the cut, as it were. He is the author of the best-selling book, The Authoritarians, and an amazing person who's seen the insides of Washington, yet still wants to go back anyway. He is Jonathan Emord, emord4va.com. Good morning, Jonathan. How are you doing, sir?
Great to be with you, Joe. Fine, thank you.
So talk about, first off, congratulations on making the cut, and now on to the primary, which will culminate on June 18th. How does that change the discussion points as you go around the states, or does it?
Well, I think it does to some extent. I mean, our position is the same on the issues, of course. We're not changing our position on the issues, but we now have to focus on 5 candidates rather than 8. And so we're looking at the differences between the candidates. We're emphasizing our unique characteristics because we think we are a perfect instrument for achieving the ends of reducing the size and scope of the government, securing the borders, ending the woke agenda in the schools, and also making sure that inflation is put in check. All those things which are essential to the people of Virginia, we think that we're best situated to achieve.
Well, talk about the inflation, and I've said this before. I know a lot of folks say that the cost of groceries is up 40%, but since most of our wages haven't gone up 40%, I will argue that the amount of groceries we're coming home with is down 40%. How and where do we just have a bonfire with all this extra money that's been thrown out there? How do we bring a lot of this cash back into the government to increase the value of our dollars, Jonathan?
Well, we have to do 2 things. We have to substantially reduce government spending, and we have to at the same time grow the economy. If we do both of those things, we will reduce inflation and we will reduce interest rates, and people will be able to survive this economy. And what does that mean? Well, that means that we have to repeal the climate change agenda, which has been an utter disaster. We have to ensure that restrictions on the production of oil and gas and natural gas in this country are not impairing the domestic achievement of energy independence. And we also have to become an energy exporter to help expand those markets. We also need to ensure that unnecessary agencies and departments are eliminated. The Department of Energy, the Department of Education, the Department of Commerce, and just dramatic reductions in the size and scope of the federal government, decentralizing and sending back down to the states and the localities the powers that really were taken from them by the federal government. That is the best way to ensure that we can survive this. Now, on growing the economy, what we need to do is to bring back manufacturers from overseas. And that means that we need to incentivize that. So we need to reduce the corporate tax rate. We also need to reduce the individual tax rate. This is how we start growing the economy again. And I'm in favor of a flat tax. 10% kicks in at $200,000 and above. Below that, no taxation, federal taxation. This will create an economic boom, the likes of which we've never seen. And it will enable us also with a flat tax to get rid of the IRS. There are a lot of things that need to be done in order to save our country, not least of which is to get back to the point that we need to have a free enterprise economy. We need to have individuals incentivized to go to work, not welfare. We need to have a marketplace that provides opportunity and upward mobility. And we need to crush crime, too. This is the other aspect of ensuring the growth of an economy. We've got this smash and grab situation all over the country because we have these Soros-backed prosecutors who won't prosecute crime. We have to get a law and order society. If you want to have a functioning market and a growing economy, you've got to protect small business. You have to grow it. And we see this in Newport News and in cities around the state, Charlottesville too. And
we just had a carjacking. They caught the guy in Waynesboro. But the idea of it's not even the smash and grab mobs in the stores. People are getting dragged out of their cars on the streets, Jonathan.
Violent crime is happening all over, and it's being fed by the open borders. That's another factor that affects the economy. You know, when you have sex trafficking, drug trafficking, MS-13 gangs, 18th Street gangs running across this country largely with impunity, with no real restrictions on their activities. In fact, we've got an underground economy of some 20 to 30 million illegal aliens operating here, taking jobs away from Americans. This whole thing is really feeding into what is going to be a new round of stagflation that may actually result in a deep, deep recession by November.
Ooh.
And so what we need to do is to ensure that this changes as rapidly as possible. And that means getting Tim Kaine to pack his bags and to go home for good. And also ensuring that someone like me gets in there that can actually do something and wants to do something desperately to save our state and save our country.
Well, Jonathan, just this past Saturday, I was a guest of the Convention of States in Virginia, and they held a Thomas Jefferson birthday party. Sadly, the only one in Charlottesville to celebrate Jefferson's birthday. But in it, we were talking about his lost usurpation, where he, called on the king, the infidel powers of the king, to promote and restrict their legislative attempts to end slavery. But this open border situation has led to, you talk about the shadow economy, that is, as my case is, slavery, because these are people who, okay, so they're getting a little bit of money, but it's not nearly what their labors should be providing, because they are here illegally. They may know they're here illegally, so they're hiding, but at the end of it, the people who are employing them understand that this is really the modern American slavery, isn't it?
Well, it is a cruel hoax, essentially, for the benefit of the Democrat Party. And that is, these people coming across are being brought in here by the cartels. They're either agents of the cartels, so the cartels don't just operate in Mexico, they operate throughout the United States with drug traffickers, sex traffickers, and so on, petty criminals. But they also are people who've been first exploited by the cartels. Many of the females have been raped repeatedly, oftentimes, before they get into this country. They have to pay some $15,000 to come across. So you're not talking about impoverished people. $15,000 or up to $30,000, depending. And when they finally do get across into this country, they're given in processing, human processing, by the DHS. They end up with welfare, food stamps, cash. A family of four gets $3,000 in cash. They get a tax ID number. They get a free cell phone, which apparently has an indefinite life, and they get transportation wherever they want to go through NGOs that we fully finance. So the amount of money that's going into these individuals is roughly $100,000 a year when you put all of it together. So
wow.
The taxpayer is paying that for roughly 20 to 30 million. Now, upwards of 65% of that 20 to 30 million are now part of a massive welfare state. Now, a lot of these people work in an underground economy, and they're making from that underground economy sums that are woefully beneath what would be paid lawfully as wages.
Well,
and so,
and you talk about this, these monies, this underground, but there's a bureaucracy where there are people in Washington, D.C. that fund these NGOs, that run these NGOs, that are living quite well on the monies we give, and we think they're helping, right?
Well, it's really a planned destruction of the United States, Joe, because I was down there in October in the San Diego sector of the border, and I went into the Human Processing Center, main one there, 130,000 square foot tent, and saw all of this activity, and that's why I can report upon it as I did a moment ago. The reality is that we're incentivizing people to come here in mass numbers, and we're not vetting them at all. And so I talked to an Ecuadorian at the border wall, and he rather plainly admitted to me that NGOs on the other side were briefing them on exactly what would happen. So they knew exactly what would happen. They knew that they could go wherever they wanted. He wanted to go to Manhattan, and he said he knew he would go to Manhattan. Within 72 hours, he would be released from the processing center, put on a plane, and sent off to Manhattan. He knew that. And in fact, that's what they're doing. So this is an insanity that is probably the greatest threat to the survival of our country. We've got foreign agents of enemy powers pouring into our nation every day, not least of which is the 40,000 estimated Chinese males. Wow. But that's a modest number actually compared to what is probably the real situation. It's easily double or triple that, to tell you the truth. One of the reported numbers are oftentimes way off.
Oh, sure.
So these people are here for nefarious reasons. We are sitting on a powder keg. This nation is going to be ripped apart by this, and we've got to get it stopped. We also have to reverse it, and we have to deport people who are here. And that's going to be a big problem, but we have to do it to establish the rule of law, to ensure that American citizens come first, and to ensure that those who lawfully emigrated to the United States are likewise protected.
Well, and here in Virginia, the farm economy and the visa programs that help support the farm economy are legend, but also these are folks who are doing it, as you said, lawfully. I'm going to pivot off of the national security threat that's right here at our border, and another international affair is continuing right now. The Senate has apparently got the House to agree to break apart Ukraine funding and Israeli funding there, and I'm sure there's going to be a third companion bill to give money to Hamas as well, or Iran, whoever's getting it. But in all these cases, in Israeli case, they don't seem to be worried about oversight. They're fine with it. But just saying to somebody, hey, can we make sure we know how the Ukrainians are using the money? And people lose their minds over this kind of thing, Jonathan. How can a person actually hold both opinions? Not that you do. Not that you do. I'm just saying that you're going up into a place where people are saying, "Oh no, we don't need to ask the Ukrainians where they're spending their money. That's mean."
In every instance, there needs to be thorough accounting. We don't need to have fraud and graft going on where people are siphoning off money that is being paid to them for their own personal financial benefit to build financial empires that are unrelated to the specific military uses. We need to be much more honed and specific. We need to be more strategic. We need to have greater oversight. We need to have greater accountability. When it comes to Israel, we need to protect Israel. Israel is our first line of defense against terrorism that would otherwise be here. Hamas, Hezbollah, Islamic Jihad, they're already in our country. They would be a far greater threat than they are, and they're a big threat, believe me, in the United States right now. But they would be a much bigger threat if Israel was not standing in the way. So ensuring that Israel has the right munitions, for example, making sure that they don't end up depleted in their Iron Dome, and their whole infrastructure is not just the Iron Dome, but it's also the Arrow and the other systems that they use for anti-ballistic missile systems and so forth. That's also strategically important for us too, because we established in this last go-around how effective those weapons were in dealing with Iran. But we have this schizophrenic policy in the Biden administration where, on the one hand, they say that they're committed to doing that sort of thing and they give additional aid, substantial amount of aid, $3 billion roughly to Israel a year. But in addition to that, they're always hamstringing Israel. And they need to get out of the way. They need to recognize Israel as a right of self-defense and let Israel do its own thing. That's in our advantage too. And Iran needs to be really put in a box. And the way to do that is to allow Israel to have its way with Iran.
Well, you look back on I was talking about the Abraham Accords over the weekend. I said the beauty of it, this was a trade deal. Where we've seen how many times over our lifetimes, Jonathan, peace treaties get torn up and thrown in the ash can. But trade agreements, is that an important thing? And would you work to bring that back?
Oh, absolutely. The Abraham Accords were essential. Biden has scuttled the whole thing. He's ruined the relationships, actually. We're hated now by our ally in Israel. I mean, behind the scenes, they love the American people. They love the nation. They love its history. But they look at Joe Biden and they consider him to be a great betrayer. He's not only betrayed our own country by his influence peddling scam where he made millions and millions of dollars from the communist Chinese and others, oligarchs in the Ukraine and so forth, which violated federal laws. He should have been impeached on that basis alone. But in addition to that, they look at him as a really a figure who is incapable of defending our interests or theirs, and as somebody who's duplicitous, who can't be relied upon, who, when he makes a statement and a commitment, will follow through with it if it's politically disadvantageous day to day. So he's played by the Palestinians, he's played by Hamas and by Hezbollah, by Islamic organizations inside the United States that are tied to radicals. He's played every day by them, and his administration is too. And that lack of resolution, that lack of firm commitment to stand for America's interests around the world is leading to these very things. It has led to the attack on Israel. It led to the invasion of the Ukraine. It led to the attack on American military bases over 50, 60 times with virtually no response to wipe out the Quds force responsible for that, and other terrorist elements responsible for that. This is a weakness that we're projecting as a result of a lack of resolution in defense of America's interests around the world.
Well, talk about your opponent and going forth into November. Once June 18th comes and goes, you're going to be running against Tim Kaine, is your intent. So he has, for somebody who often will have something to say about the postal delivery in Virginia, I find his lack of statement sometime on what's going on in the Middle East to be very telling. He's on the Foreign Relations Committee.
Right. He's what I call the artful dodger. If there's an area of controversy, he shifts away from it, and he avoids accountability for actions that actually feed into these things. Tim Kaine is behind the ignominious retreat from Afghanistan. He was fully briefed on that, stood by the president through the whole thing, was fully aware of it, and did absolutely nothing to attack the president on that issue. When it comes to the borders, he's been fully behind the open borders. When it comes to the defunding of the police, he's done absolutely nothing to stop crime in our communities and the anti-incarceration agenda of Soros-backed prosecutors. He's been in bed with the Soros family since he ran for mayor of Richmond when George Soros $50,000 to support his campaign there. He's closely aligned with that. And, you have the Clinton-Kaine scandal, and Clinton gets all the flack for it, which he richly deserves for the whole Russia hoax against President Trump. But Kaine was fully embedded in that whole thing, too. They were all aware that the Steele dossier was bogus. They were all aware, and they applied it. This is a person who lacks integrity. The problem with Kaine is he's sort of like Humpty Dumpty. He sits on that wall, he smiles a lot, but sooner or later he falls and crashes. And the problem with him as well is that he's not only taking down himself. In this instance, he's taking down the wall as well. So when he refuses to address the borders, when he's done nothing, absolutely nothing. He refuses to address inflation, nothing to stop inflation. When he refuses to address the entire woke agenda in the schools, except to patronize and support it, and to support the NEA, and then look at people and say, well, I have nothing to do with that. That's totally bogus lie.
Well, let me pick up on that, Jonathan Emord. We're running over a little bit. It's the joy of doing this on Rumble and YouTube. I don't have to get out at the prescribed time. We generally go to 8, but I want to bring this story up. It came up earlier as well. Do we have the headline there? Tim Kaine compares parents who raise hell at school board meetings to January 6th rioters, and he said that when he watches these protests at school board meetings, he's reminded of when he was barricaded inside the Capitol on January 6th, 2021. I read this and I said, oh my God, Terry McAuliffe is on the phone saying, what did you just do? Talk about using this, and can the same thing that we watched Glenn Youngkin ride, this kind of attitude towards parents to the governor's mansion, win for the Republican against Tim Kaine?
Well, Tim Kaine, from the very start, during the McAuliffe campaign, he was echoing McAuliffe's statements that critical race theory was not an issue in Virginia schools, even though his wife actually brought critical race theory to Virginia as Secretary of Education. He was not oblivious. He was fully aware of that, and yet he lied by saying, well, no, it's not present. It's not an issue here in Virginia schools. He knew it really was. And with the parents' issues, he's on the other side. He's on the NEA side. So he's placating the NEA because that's where his support comes from. He will go against parents in a heartbeat, and did there, for example, and in what you're saying. I mean, the point is, he is not a backer of parents' rights. Now, you're saying, is this going to be an issue? You better believe it. It's going to be a central issue in this campaign. Why? Because he is defending this whole weaponization of government against parents, the FBI, the Department of Justice activity. When he was there in that Catholic church in Richmond during the Latin Mass, when he commented on that, and the FBI's ridiculous expansion of its activities to go against conservatives in the Latin Mass, his artful dodge there was ridiculous. I mean, he said, no, we have to support the FBI, and this is, there are elements here that need to be investigated. What they should have done is talk to the leadership in the Catholic Church, as if that was somehow ameliorating this violation of their First Amendment freedom of religion. So he doesn't care about the Constitution. He doesn't protect it. And in this instance, he violates the rights of parents, and he supports that violation in what he does. And he wants bureaucratic control over your children. He does not believe in the constitutional rights under the 14th Amendment for parents. Parents have a constitutional right to the education and upbringing of their children. They should control that. Yeah. He's on the McAuliffe side, and he believes that bureaucrats in the education establishment take over as soon as your child passes the schoolhouse gate. As soon as they're on school property, they're no longer your kids. And that's what parents in Loudoun and throughout the state are saying is totally unacceptable in public schools. And another thing is, you'll never hear him support true school choice. Of course, he's totally against it. And that's the solution. We need competition to public schools in order to ensure quality education. And I mean true school choice. So I mean that when you're in a school and 14 to 21,000 is expended in tax dollars for your student to be in that school, that money should go with you when you leave to whatever school you want to put your child in. And that should be the way it is, so that there's true competition across the board, and we break apart this public school monopoly.
Jonathan Emord, emord4va.com. You see it there on the screen. Thank you so much for your time this morning, sir. By the way, Blair Hawkins said fat tax. Damn. Blair, you got to do one of these. It was flat tax that he said. I think it was Michael Bloomberg that had the fat tax. Jonathan, it's so good to catch up with you, sir. Good luck and congratulations on, quote, making the cut onto the final ballot for the GOP primary.
You bet. Thanks so much for having me on.
And thank you all for joining us this morning. And I hope you enjoyed, again, another great travail into, really, I mean, sure, Chris Graham called me a conservative talk show host. Yes, because my beliefs are that conservative principles are the right answer, and we apply them that way. But the issues are the issues. And when Tim Kaine says the parents that get mad at school boards for failing their kids are the same as the January 6th rioters, Terry McAuliffe's on the phone. He wants his campaign strategy back. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 6. Until then, so long, and thanks for all the fish.